Welcome to the lecture for Chapter 7. After going through the steps of research and action, or program planning, the next step for PR professionals is to address the communication or execution of a plan. This chapter addresses how to use communication to create messages for audiences that will be understood, believed, remembered, and acted upon. We should remember that just because a message is sent out, it doesn't mean the message will be received. This chapter offers some recommendations on how to make strong and effective messages. A simple way to think about the act of communication is offered by sociologist Harold Lasswell, who defined the act as who says what, in what channel, to whom, with what effect. Let's begin with the goals of communication. Communication strategies and tactics can come in the form of news releases, news conferences, special events, social media, speeches, webcasts, rallies, posters, and word of mouth. Goals of communication are to inform, persuade, motivate, or achieve mutual understanding. In order to be an effective communicator, a PR person should have basic knowledge of three things. First, what constitutes communication and how people receive messages. Second, how people process information and change their perceptions. And third, what kind of media and communication tools are most appropriate for a particular message. PR professionals have a range of tools at their disposal in our day and age. We need to think beyond the traditional tools such as newspapers, magazine, radio, and television, as they are no longer sufficient. Based off of the objectives that a program wants to achieve, a PR practitioner needs to determine what needs to be achieved. These can include message exposure, accurate dissemination of the message, acceptance of the message, attitude change, or change in overt behavior. Most PR professionals aim for the first two. The last three depend on the particular public and their preliminary attitudes about something. For example, some audiences need to be introduced to a product or concept that they have never heard of. That's what the first two accomplish. If your public, however, has already been introduced to a concept, then you can take the audience to the next three steps since the first two have already been accomplished. Researchers have created numerous models to explain how communication functions. Over the years, the models have changed from being linear to being more cyclical. The textbook offers one on page 176 that portrays communication as a constant loop of feedback in between the source and the receiver. Ideal communication in PR should follow the two-way symmetrical communication model that balances communication in between the sender and the receiver. Out of two-way symmetrical communication, the best channel is through face-to-face conversation. Small group communication is also effective because it allows verbal and nonverbal communication to diminish barriers in communication. No matter how good a message is, it ultimately fails if an audience doesn't pay attention. At any given time, the majority of the audience might not be interested in a message or idea, but that doesn't mean that audiences are passive. They are made up of individuals that select messages that relate the most to them. In other words, people come to messages for different reasons. There are 4 different reasons the textbook outlines for why people pay attention to messages. The first reason is surveillance of the environment to find out what is happening locally or globally that has some impact on them. The second reason is for entertainment and diversion. The third is reinforcement of their opinions and predispositions. And the fourth is to help with decision-making about a product or service. If people come to mass media for different reasons, the PR practitioner must tailor messages to fit the audience. The textbook outlines 2 types of audiences. The first is the passive audience. This audience is made up of individuals who pay attention to a message only because it is entertaining and offers a diversion. Passive audiences need messages that have style and creativity. Most PR campaigns are designed to reach primarily passive audiences. The other type of audience is the active audience. This is made up of individuals that actively seek information, are already interested and engaged, and are in search of more sophisticated supplemental information. At any given time, you can have both of these audiences, so it is important to have multiple audiences. In order to get people to listen to messages and pay attention, PR professionals can incorporate different attention-getting concepts. One way is for PR professionals to play to all 5 senses, such as sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. It's a good idea to use different channels of communication like YouTube, billboards, newsletters, and radio announcements to send messages out. PR professionals can also create a need in order to make the audience feel like there is something in their life that needs to be satisfied. And finally, PR professionals can garner attention by starting a message with a statement that reflects audience values and predispositions. This is known as channeling. The textbook offers seven different ways to make a message more understandable. The first requires PR professionals to be aware of cultural differences when creating messages. They also should write for clarity and consider the audience and literacy levels of that audience. It is a good idea to use symbols, acronyms, and slogans because audience members can readily remember these. PR professionals should avoid jargon or highly technical words, as many might not understand them and jargon can interfere with the message. You should avoid cliches and hype words. This means any language that exaggerates something, like revolutionary, first of its kind, or unique. You should also avoid euphemisms. A euphemism is an inoffensive word or phrase used to distort reality. An airline once called a crash of one of its planes, quote, the involuntary conversion of a 727. This language can create suspicion, cynicism, or distrust. And finally, you should avoid discriminatory language. This is any language that calls attention to gender, race, or sexual orientation. Audience members must believe the message you are sending out. PR professionals have to ask if the source of the message is credible, honest, objective, and knowledgeable. Research shows that 2/3 of people do not trust a statement by a large company. That's why companies often use outside experts or celebrities to represent a company and convey messages. Messages have to be from a reliable source, they should be believable, they should take audience predispositions into account as well, and this is where PR professionals ask if the audience is for or against a product or a company. And you should also take audience interest into account. This occurs when a PR professional determines if an audience is interested or concerned in a specific product or service. Messages need to be repeated and offered in a variety of ways so people will remember them. There are several reasons why messages are repeated. Repetition is necessary because not all members see or hear the message at the same time. Repetition reminds the audience so there is less chance of a failure to remember the message. Repetition also helps the audience remember the message itself because audience members will forget it if it is not repeated constantly. And finally, repetition can lead to improved learning and increase the chance of penetrating audience members who are indifferent or resistant. Although acting on a message is usually a complex and lengthy process, people usually go through similar states when adopting a process. The process includes awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, and adoption. Awareness is when a person becomes aware of a product. Interest occurs when a person seeks out more information. Evaluation is when a person evaluates the idea or product based on how it does or does not meet a person's needs and wants. Trial occurs when a person tries the product or idea on an experimental basis, usually through a sample or a trial. And finally, adoption occurs when a person begins to use the product on a regular basis or integrates an idea into his or her belief system. Thank you for listening to the lecture on Chapter 7, Communication. Today we discussed the role of communication in public relations and how it matters to message creation and effectiveness. We went over the goals of communication, receiving the message, paying attention to, understanding, believing, remembering, and acting on the message. Hopefully this chapter provides a context for knowing how to initiate and effectively execute the communication phase of a PR program.